Time being 6:01 on the 15th of October, 2024. I call this meeting of the Capital Planning Committee to order. Let's begin with a roll call vote. Heath Emberg, aye.
Wayne Bully, aye.
Michael Coward,
Chris Berman, aye.
All right. On to announcements. This meeting is being recorded. Anyone intending to make an audio or video recording of this meeting should notify the chair at this time. This committee still has a vacancy for a Kingston resident. If you or anyone you know may be interested, please reach out to Kingston's Finance Committee. You can reach them by email at fincom@kingstonma.gov. That's fincom@kingstonma.gov. One other announcement, I'll just preempt for our conversation later. I've learned just yesterday that the production time on the fire engines has been increased to an estimated 60 to 90 days, bringing us effectively from 1,100 days to 1,200 days. Does anyone else have any announcements? Hearing none. He's out of the room. All right, well, we'll move on to the improvements. The capital improvement plan and financial updates. Keep out there. All right. This place. Well, we can give him a minute. Okay, regrettably, I won't be able to attend FinCom's meeting in person tomorrow night to answer any questions about whatever it is that we do here tonight. But Carl is here with us, chairman of the committee, and the vice chairman, Michael Coward's with us. And I'm going to try to call in so I can be there to answer any questions. All right. All right, Keith, you're up.
Sorry to make you wait.
No, just looking for any updates on the capital improvement plan or anything financial.
I've got, I had an opportunity to spend some time with the fire chief a little bit after working with the finance director to make sure that the capital project stabilization funds could meet the obligations, the current obligations, then look at the obligations for engine 3 replacement, excuse me. Had to rework the numbers, frankly, to make things to allow enough money to remain in the stabilization fund to fund the existing leases and still pay the over $1 million. So last week we had talked about some different options. One of which was to use the $400,000 that was that's in an escrow account to pay down the lease on the engine. I need that $400,000 when reviewing the capital stabilization fund. I need that $400,000 to meet the obligations over the next couple of years of the outstanding leases. So if this group wants to bring forward a fire truck, whether it be frankly this fall or next spring, Mark was kind enough to reach out to the leasing company again this afternoon, and was kind enough to get us something from the airport. What we do is we would lease the truck with the lease payment starting in July 1st of 28, fiscal year 29. We pay $100,000 in fiscal year 29 and 30, and then move that payment up to $300,000 in years 31 through 33, and then pay off the balance of $210,000 in 2034.
That's wrong, Keith. That all should have started in 27, 26.
You know what? I'm sorry, you're right. It can start at 26.
Be the same effect.
Yeah, so basically we'll have the funding available. So I apologize, I didn't revise this, but the thought was to start paying down the debt in an amount we can afford. Those figures may, again, I think I'm trying to be pretty conservative with this. The $100,000 in the first couple of years, it might be able to increase a bit once we have A recommendation, ultimately through town meeting. For any other capital needs. I don't know that we're gonna have to touch anything in the capital stabilization fund, but we could bump up the 100 to potentially 150 for the first couple of years.
You mean in terms of a transfer that town meeting would approve?
No, I'm talking about the terms of the lease itself.
I see.
We can lock, if we've got some flexibility, we should be able to bump that $100,000 up, probably 50,000 a year.
That kind of gives you plus. Is everybody here, Keith? On the call?
So, so the capital planning committee needs to decide whether they want to bring something forward this fall or next spring. Understanding we'd be leasing, likely the entire amount of the vehicle. Over the term rather than paying using $400,000 in cash. Now, again, the one unknown, I guess I would say, is, could we use some free cash to pay down the $1 million in the spring, depending on what else the capital planning committee decides to fund, perhaps. So there's some flexibility and we can commit this fall, I guess, right? If you guys want to bring something forward, and we can finalize financing in the spring once we have a clear picture, a complete picture of where things stand on the capital project funding requests.
Just make sure that I'm hearing correctly.
Sure.
What you're saying is we could decide to purchase or to move at Springtown meeting the replacement for engine 3,
Mhm.
but you'd still have to arrange the financing in the spring.
Excuse me, we would be committing to acquiring the truck this fall. But the truck would not be paid in full. It wouldn't be paid at all, frankly.
So you have 30 days from when you order it,
Right.
to have a financial agreement in place. So if we decide that we're gonna order it this fall, then we have to have a financial agreement in place with them 30 days after, or within 30 days of the
Okay, but that would still help us avoid the $48,000 increase
Yeah. If you
in
did,
January
if you
and
did
the
it this
unknown
fall.
second price increase in July.
Yep.
Which could, as we discussed, could potentially boost the price of the engine by $100,000.
Yeah.
So from 26 to 30, it'd be 100 grand a year. Is that what you were saying? And then it goes up.
From fiscal 26 to 30. No, I'm sorry. Let me back up. I placed these in the wrong year. So fiscal 27, which is July 1st to 26. Fiscal 28 would be $100,000. And then fiscal 29, 30, 31 would be $300,000. And then fiscal 32 would be 210, 530.
What do we have coming off leases?
So that's really why I wanted to try to phase this a little bit. We've got
2027, we no longer have a payment on the backhoe loader, but it saves us a whopping $19,000. So we,
So at the end of fiscal 20, or in fiscal 28, we will have paid off the ladder truck. We will also have paid off the refurbishment of ambulance 1 and ambulance 2. So that frees up almost $400,000 a year.
And when are we going to start considering that vacuum truck that's gonna be?
I'll know more this spring. I mean, I think the last capital improvement plan that was done for this past spring had the vacuum truck out still a few years. I don't have.
2028, and it would look as though it was going to follow the engine 1 last payment. So the last payment would be in fiscal year 27, with the vacuum truck being ordered in 2028.
So the only two things that may need to be leased. One, I think would be, in all likelihood, would be a vacuum truck. The other thing we may be able to pay cash on, depending whether we use stabilization fund and or a portion of free cash, is either the refurbishment or the replacement of ambulance 3.
And the rate at which the vacuum truck has been increasing.
To the
It will
fire
be a
truck.
fire engine when we
Yeah.
order.
Yep.
I think that went from what, 460 to something like 680 or something in the course of a year or two. Yeah, 660, so right now, at least it was a year ago. It's growing by leaps and bounds.
I guess I would just remind everybody, if I could, then I'll stop talking. Just to give everybody a sense of where we'll be with free cash. Right now, free cash is 2.5 million that was certified. We have three items that at this point in the warrant are proposed to be funded with free cash. 159,000 for the public safety radios, the 75,000 for a police vehicle, and the 76,000 for playground repairs. So if those three items are funded at town meeting, you have a remaining balance of free cash of $2,189,000. The goal, I think, of the FinCom has been anywhere between $1 million and $1.5 million in free cash after Springtown meeting. So you're gonna have, between 600 and 1.1 million. You allocate money to. We've got, obviously the same police cars that we typically purchase. But there shouldn't be really, I don't believe there'll be anything for streets and parks that I'm aware of.
Couple of years before the trackless machine comes out.
Excuse me, the only unknown. The only other capital expense that I'm aware of. You're gonna potentially have some school-related items. They did a envelope study, I think that's what it's called. And depending on what the results of the envelope study is, and what they prioritize, the school has submitted a warrant article to spend $60,000, or one more $60,000, I think. Yeah, $60,000 for the roof through the school building aid, MSBA, Massachusetts School Building Aid Authority. The school has applied for grant reimbursement of the elementary school roof. From what I understand, the school department hopes to hear sometime around the end of October whether or not they have been included in that program. If they have been, there's a warrant article on the warrant for $60,000 to fund a scoping analysis, something that's required by MSBA to determine what the appropriate scope of the work would be to have the roof work done. And then you would see a spring town meeting warrant article for whatever improvements to the roof were identified and recommended by the company that's been hired to do the work. So actually you have just over $2.1 million in matching proceeds.
So what I'd like to just, from my perspective, the numbers I came up with, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we have one pot of free cash to use for capital and everything else on this special town meeting warrant and the annual town meeting warrant. If we say yes to every request for special town meeting, every request for annual town meeting, as well as our commitments on leases, of which some of that would be paid for by the meals tax. We're looking at, without subtracting the meals tax, we're gonna move $3 million, which there simply isn't money there to pay for. So we are really in a position where we are picking and choosing by priority what moves and what doesn't. You've got 2.1, we've got requests and commitments for 3.
I'm sorry, where's the 3 come from?
The 3 is the total of the requests we have for special town meeting minus the waterways. Last year's, I should say, so the fiscal year 26 capital plan.
Mhm.
So that's no new additions, but also nothing separated because where you go through and parse out some stuff that maybe shouldn't be funded in the year. Those 2 totals. So that would be, let me just see here. Those plus the lease commitments, it looks like it gets up to 3 million. Now, that includes things like the $500,000 for roadworks that last year we didn't fund.
And again.
So it looks inflated, but my point is if we said yes to everything,
Well, the lease payments though are taken out of the separate funding.
well, you have them in capital stabilization, but it's meals tax and then the balance of meals tax doesn't cover is free cash. I don't know what the
No.
meals, no?
We've never gone into free cash to pay.
I thought you made transfers for free cash, no?
Oh, sir.
Okay.
Not for cap, I mean, not to move into the capital stabilization, that was,
Okay, then the number is without the lease payments is just as close to 2.2 million.
To simplify it, you should be, I believe, you should be coming up with an amount that you want to spend annually for capital. We used to always say we wanted to spend $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 for capital, and that all came from free cash. The so-called stabilization fund results from the what are we running for meal tax now? 300,000?
no, it's about 450 now.
Okay, so call it
I'm
500K.
sorry, 425.
So you've got 400K coming into capital from the meals tax. Then you've got this magic stabilization fund that we tried to build up over a period of time that was built up from a combination of free cash and the meals tax. So that if you've got a balance of 600K in the stabilization fund right now, and you want to spend, including leases, $1 million, that means you can either spend the whole 600K and take 400 from free cash. Or you spend 200 of the 600 and you take 800 from free cash. The long and short of it, the only funding that you get for capital, the way the town has always operated, is number one, from the meals tax, 4 to 500K, and number two, from free cash. So that, I think we complicate it when we try, the original plan on the stabilization fund was a true stabilization fund, just like our general stabilization fund, that you will build it up and you don't use it until Mark comes and says, my $1 million fire truck just crapped the bed. I have to have a new one next month. And you'd have the $1 million sitting there to buy it. That's not the way we have done it. So we've kind of used it to pay the leases, like Keith said there. But the long and short of it, you still have a number. And I think one of the things the capital planning committee should be doing and working with the town administration and the finance committee is coming up with what do we think on an ongoing budget we can spend for capital. We used to always say 500K. Mr. Pike years ago said 500K wasn't enough. Okay, well, I think we've gone to the other extreme and we've had a couple of years where we're spending much more than $1 million. So if the committee thinks that $1.5 million is the correct number, the finance committee thinks $1.5 million is the correct number, you're getting 400K from your meals tax, so you're gonna be taking $1 million a year from free cash. Does that sound right to you, Keith? Do you disagree with anything?
I don't. So what we have historically, at least in my time here, we've used the stabilization funds to pay just the leases. And then there's been other capital items, lease cars, and then any other type of capital, smaller capital item. We've used free cash for, and we have, I think we're gonna get back to using the stabilization accounts as a savings account, like the general fund does.
I think one of the considerations to make is that at least in the past 2 or 3 years, the economy has been in such a state that we've been trying to outplay it for our own benefit.
Well,
Ordering things in advance because of how long it takes.
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I mean, because of the length of time it takes for a fire vehicle, for the most part, most of the stuff is still The police cars, the public works trucks are longer than they were 2 or 3 years ago to order, but they're not anywhere near as long as a fire truck. I mean, my opinion only. Part of the reason we've got into these leases and we bought 4 dump trucks last year is because the overall condition of the fleet was poor at best. Where we didn't, dump trucks may not have been inspected and whatnot. So I think we played catch up. I think overall, the streets and parks fleet is in pretty good shape. I think once we get a new fire engine, that's gonna be in pretty good shape.
We have a fire engine that the chief thinks will last 3 years.
And,
In better times, we could have ordered it the year before we needed it and gotten it when we expected. So we could plan for a 1.5 or $1.7 million capital budget. We're not in those days anymore and we hope to return to them, but now we're at 3 years. A few months ago, they had 2,000 engines on back order. Now it's 3 or 5.
Oh, it's escalating every day. It's in the thousands of trucks on order though.
And they make 40 per month.
yeah, no, I get it. So again, like all I'm trying to say is in the next 2 or 3 years, most of our leases paid off. So when either the back of the truck or another piece of fire apparatus come forward in 2028, 2029, 2030, we should be in a much better position to pay, if not all cash, the lion's share of it.
And I don't think there's anything in terms of vehicles or equipment in the 5-year plan as it stood last January. Other than the Vector truck, this fire engine, and possibly an ambulance 3 replacement that we would have considered using a lease for. In other words, as these leases get paid down, we're gonna be at a normal number.
The hope is that, my expectation is that we will have not needed to rely on the stabilization account to pay leases. But at least it'll be the lion's share of the stabilization account. We'll let that stabilization account, as Carl suggested, start to accumulate a balance. So when some of these larger vehicles come forward in future years, we should have, just like we do with free cash and stabilization, I would like to think in a few years, we'll be able to say, we want a floor of X, and anything above that floor, we are willing to work with to fund capital items. We aren't going to go below whatever that number seems most appropriate to carry forward. So if God forbid something were to happen and we needed a new fire truck because ours was damaged and couldn't be replaced for some reason, wasn't covered under insurance or something along those lines, building damage, whatever it happens to be, we've got some liquidity in this capital stabilization account that we can apply towards whatever that need is. Right now, we just don't have that flexibility.
And to close out the discussion of stabilization, every regular town meeting warrant since I've been here, even this past year, you have a capital item that goes into the stabilization fund. Some years it's been 100K, some years it's been 200K. But I believe if you look at the warrant for the last spring town meeting, there was an item in there for either 100K or 200K for capital that came out of free cash and went into stabilization.
I have to go back and look. I don't recall that, but I know we put money aside in the town stabilization. We put money aside into the health insurance reserve. I don't recall putting money into a capital stabilization, but I can't sit here tonight and say that's absolutely true. I can go sit and get a warrant and tell you, but as I sit here today, I don't know. Doesn't sound familiar. I could be wrong.
While he's looking that up, you can maybe answer this question for me. Do we know when they're gonna start the work on the Reed tennis courts? I wasn't sure if you
I
know.
haven't heard, I know that the school department was,
The recreation part.
Reed tennis court, I don't know.
Okay, so I went up there.
I would
today.
assume it's not gonna be till spring at this point. I
Yeah.
don't think they're gonna work on it in the winter time.
Okay.
Don't know for sure. Haven't heard. I'm trying to get these wells fixed.
Yeah. They're a little distracted. All right, well then, maybe I'll ask the members what they think. How do you guys want to go about this? What are you comfortable with? We've got a warrant article of 5 items. One of them we're not funding, but we are moving in a town meeting. We've already voted that item except for Michael, because you weren't here, Michael. I don't know if you feel like we should reconsider so you can vote one way or the other? My vote doesn't change. All right. Is there anything that anyone wants to go through on this list first? We have the radio upgrades, fire engine 3, a vehicle for a comfort dog, and the KES playground repairs. I don't know if we want to go easiest to hardest to easiest, or whatever anyone's preference is.
I'm fine just going through them in the order that you list them.
I think the easiest thing might be respectfully, Keith, is somebody make a motion on each item and if there's discussion after the motion, and discussion and a final vote, move on.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say this, I think for some of these, we have to have a motion to change the language of the description in the warrant article. We had, last time, I don't know if it's been changed, any of the documentation since, a vehicle replacement for the comfort dog vehicle. I need to see that as a vehicle acquisition
Yes.
for a comfort dog, and I think it should say that. I would respectfully say we could probably put the KES playground repairs. Maybe we'll put that in the motion. So I want the town meeting to know which playground we're speaking about. And the vehicle replacement for the fire department, I think we should say fire engine 3 replacement. I think it'll raise a little less eyebrows if they see $1 million vehicle replacement, if they know it's for a fire engine.
So I don't disagree with most of it.
Okay.
My pushback a little bit frankly was I think while it's important to give as much detail as we can, we got into we could have gotten into a little bit of a, if again, worst case scenario. We sit here today and we approved replacement of fire engine 3. And something happens, we're gonna replace fire engine 2. I can't replace fire engine 2 because the law says fire engine 3. So I would respectfully suggest, you know, if you wanted to, vehicle replacement fire engine and just leave engine. So it's a little, so because if God forbid there was something where you need a little bit of wiggle room, you've got that. You still have to, you can only replace a fire engine, but you can replace one of the 3 of them. If something were to happen between the date of town meeting and the date of order.
I understand that. I agree with you completely on that.
So that's just my concern.
Okay, does anyone want to pick one and make a motion? Discussion to follow?
I'll move project $159,148 for public safety radio upgrades.
Second,
Any discussion? All right, well, I'll just say that I support this one. I would rather we had seen this, like many of these, in the normal cycle of going through capital, but I think, there's a target to do with ARPA. It's safety for a lot of people, and it helps us. I would call it level services because we expect these radios to have to work, and in a critical location, they don't without this. So I'm gonna call for a vote. All those in favor, roll call vote. Keith, aye.
Wayne, I.
Michael, I.
Chris, I.
Okay, we want to move on to project number 2. This motion, we might have to amend this motion. I'm not sure if we have to consider the financing, or is that something what were we saying about that?
They have to add lease to their motion.
The leasing language will be in the warrant. So I mean, if the finance committee is interested, if they want to include that language, I don't think it hurts us, but.
I just was curious if they had that included.
Would someone like to make that motion? All right, I'll make the motion. Move favorable action on vehicle replacement for the fire department for $1,082,769.
Second,
Hold on just a second, just trying to put this down. All those in favor?
Wayne, I.
Chris, I.
Keith, aye.
Michael, I.
All right, on to project 3, the comfort dog vehicle. Any discussion?
I look at this as a want more than a need. That's, I have to say. I mean, 75,000. We can discuss this again in the spring. If needed.
I mean, I will say, 2 points that I was concerned with, the idea that if we started saying yes to a lot of stuff. We have 2 patrol vehicles in the Springtown meeting warrant. I wouldn't want to see trading one of those for a comfort dog vehicle that we'd already said yes to previously. I was very concerned about that. I like the idea of the comfort dog. I was just speaking to my brother, who was a patrolman in Plimpton yesterday, and they have one. But as I said before, during the discussion about funding this ARPA, I don't think it's level services until we either go through a budgeting process that says we wish to expand to have a comfort dog and everything we need for that, including the vehicle. I went to the budget advisory committee last year and they were adamant about level services. I'm gonna need to see a budget advisory committee or selectmen or town meeting say we want a comfort dog, and then we can work the vehicle in. That's just my personal opinion. I do think it's a nice idea though.
Yeah, I would tend to second Wayne and Heath's analysis of that for right now.
I'm more or less in agreement myself.
Okay, who made the motion? We don't have a motion yet?
I'll make a motion for purposes of consideration for favorable action on project 3, a $75,000 vehicle replacement for the police.
We have a second? I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Oh, okay, well, I beat you to it, Chris.
Can I be heard before you vote?
Absolutely.
I brought this out at the finance committee meeting. It's gonna be tough for people online to see. But it's really about understanding what you're saying yes or no to. It's the first step towards the establishment of the family service unit for the department. In the middle, you have the letters FSU, Family Services Unit. Bubble represents each component of what the Family Services Unit is gonna be. The grant for a family clinician is pending. It's been filed with the State Department of Mental Health. The comfort dog and handler and cruiser go with it. And it's a vision for the future. It's what bigger police departments are doing. This would be a shared resource between Plimpton, Halifax, and Kingston.
The dog
The
would?
clinician only.
Oh, clinician.
Clinician funding would be a shared resource.
And if no action is taken on this till the spring, do you lose that grant? Or the
Mental
grant?
health clinician, no, if we get awarded that, that's separate and apart, even though on this chart, it's 3 conjoined bubbles. But I've said in previous meetings that the district attorney grant program is not gonna be there forever. I don't know how long it's gonna last. I don't know where he's getting his money from. I just know that he is funding dogs, funding supplementation of the equipment that goes, like some of the upfitting for the dog vehicle.
I mean, I personally think it's a great idea. However, I also think that we have to be somewhat conservative spending our money. We don't know, I mean, this is October. We have no idea what's gonna pop in November, December, January.
I mean, like I said before, if it was a patrol vehicle that could be outfitted for a dog. And if we didn't get a dog, it could remain as a patrol vehicle. It's a little bit more palatable, but when we went to the Budget Advisory Committee, Carl and I walked in there saying level services need to apply to capital items as well. You couldn't just have a level services budget and then start adding new capital we've never had before. Under those financial conditions. I mean, I just need to see a Budget Advisory Committee or town meeting or someone say, this is what we want, go get it.
Sure, I mean, I asked for support from the finance committee the other night, I received it, I asked for support from this committee previously, I received it. I think the different interjoined committees need to ask themselves what they want. I've said it before, the men and women of the Kingston Police Department serve this town very well, they're an incredible asset. What does this town want from its police department? Because what you have is the police department of 1992. Does it want to be contemporary, or do you want to start taking steps moving forward to building a bigger police department? There's an absence of Kingston PD in southern Plymouth County. These are the things that will get us some more of that presence and recognition out there. Again, it's a question of what does this town want?
Yeah, it's just from a policy perspective, the way I look at it is, the only thing we touch is the vehicle. The dog, the clinician, I mean, finance committee has purview over or advisory purview over the costs. That's part of the operating budget, even stuff that's in the grant could potentially come into it. Policy is ultimately either up to the selectmen or the town meeting, depending on how that. I mean, unless this is something that the state says the chief can do without a vote of the executive board or the legislative body. We can only speak to a vehicle. And I'm a little concerned about putting the cart before the horse and saying, let's get the vehicle, and then there's no. If they don't go for it, I mean, they have to go for it before I think we say we can fund it, the vehicle. If you were hiring patrolmen and you're sending in a patrol vehicle, I think we could probably make a motion if we had the money for it and say contingent upon approval at town meeting. I don't know how to do this without, can't speak to the policy, it's out of our lane.
Say something?
Yeah, before you do, I mean, for the record, this committee needs to know that the finance committee, not the finance committee, the board of selectmen authorized me to apply for the grant for the clinician. They also authorized me to apply for a grant for the federal cops program. So there's some growth that's gonna be happening. Yeah, sorry.
So that's what I was gonna say. We are gonna need an additional.
I think the audio may not be picking up what's being discussed at the moment.
I was just about to ask about that.
I don't know if they can hear us, Chris, because I'm talking, you're talking, I don't see any reaction. Let me text Heath.
Sounds like a solution. I was worried it might be my headset, but
Yeah,
clearly it's not.
I kind of tend to assume that we've got issues. I've got issues if it's anything like this.
I'll just say that I can't hear either, so.
Awesome. Well,
Must be an issue in the meeting room itself then, not us or not Zoom.
I'm gonna try giving him a call. Oh boy. Let me see if I can get Carl.
I'm just texting Carrie right now as well.
You're on camera. You should just start waving your arms wildly. Hold up a sign.
I just wonder if it froze. Oh, Keith seems to have figured this out. No.
Just a lot of people.
Hey, there we go.
There we go.
You're back.
Sorry about that, Michael. I was receiving calls from people unrelated to this meeting, so I cut my phone.
Any port in a storm, Heath.
So you have any thoughts about this police vehicle for a comfort dog?
Unless in the past 90 seconds that the audio was out, there was some sort of overriding reason why this needs to be done now and not in May, then I think I'm still on the side of considering this alongside everything else in May.
Okay, anything, Christopher?
I'm in agreement.
Okay.
What's that?
Vote. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Michael, no.
Wayne,
Chris,
no.
no.
All right, Heath, no. Who made the motion on that? A while ago.
I think I did.
Yeah, Mike did.
And I think you had the second, Heath.
I seconded it, okay.
I think so.
Oh. There it was.
It's just for my own notification, the doctor placement was at what?
It was 3-0.
3-0.
All right, so we will probably have to bring that up in the budget advisory meeting. The comfort dog meeting. But prior, we were only basically replacement or repair capital for the level services.
I think that'll be answered with
And the selectmen will have to represent, you know.
direction that can be.
All right. On to the next. The dock replacement we're fine with, and that just leaves the KES playground repairs.
Just for the sake of discussion, I'll move project 5, favorable action, $76,000 playground repairs. School department.
I'll second it. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Michael, I.
Keith, aye.
Chris, aye.
Now, one question, just in case we have to re-vote, should the motion include, if the fundraising comes in? Lower the number, or we just amend that on the town meeting
I
floor?
think we just need to amend it.
Because potentially what they could fundraise, let's just say would be equivalent to the tractor we learned about this past year for grounds maintenance. I've heard somebody online saying they think they can raise something like 38,000.
Trying to raise 30.
I don't want to displace that with this, but I also know this will be used every day and hasn't been
Yeah.
as a condition it's in. So let's hopefully we can recoup some of that.
Our plan, Heath, is to, this is Trish, is to amend the warrant on the town floor.
That'd be great, because there are some requests that right now, based on the way I've been looking at my analysis the past few days, I don't know how we can pay for them.
Okay,
So we really need to work on that, including school requests.
gotcha. There is, I'll just say right now, they just released the fundraising yesterday, and there was $1,800 raised in a day, so that was outstanding.
It is if they can maintain it.
6,000.
What's
Pardon
that?
me?
Plus another 6,000 we have. So
You should get in the fundraising game. Get you that.
a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that too. Maybe we're gonna have to do that. when
We'll
the
have a
grant dries up.
fundraiser on our playground. Yes. My church is big.
Trade. Good dog for us.
They do love the dogs. So.
All right, so I think, Keith, we have your warrant article all squared away.
That was all set. I wasn't sure if you guys were gonna want to talk about this. Replacement of the roof.
Something changed there.
No, you know what? Just,
Did we not vote that? Because I think, no, we didn't have the final number.
so 60,000, right now, what I understand, there's two components, the total $60,000. We actually, and I asked one of the two of you to correct me if I'm wrong, you may not have to complete one of the two tasks, which would reduce the cost from 60 to 50. We'll know that at town meeting, so we can, again, have the article at town meeting if we need it.
We'll know that information, Keith, at the end of October, as far as what the commitment's gonna look like.
So just to recap, that money's for the engineering to get the grant going.
Correct.
And so there's potentially a lower number coming in, but I would guess we would make a motion. Are we moving for favorable action, or is it just advisory? Is this a separate article?
Separate article.
So we don't actually have to put the amount in there. In the motion. Or do we?
Here, I don't.
Might as well, guess, what's the number, 60,000?
Yeah,
Okay.
we have to show for the MSBA grant, we have to show them the funding mechanism, basically showing them the vote that was authorizing the monies to be available for that process.
Okay, what's the article number? Can we put that in Article 3? Article 3.
Yes.
Will only cost millions. Close to one cost. Okay, somebody have a motion?
I would move favorable action, Article 3, $60,000 scope analysis for the KES group.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Michael, I.
Chris, I.
All right, very good. Hopefully they finally come through.
Yeah.
So I think that's it, aside from we have a batch of meeting minutes. I could just skip over that for a minute, so that I know no one else probably wants to sit around for that, but future meetings. I'm gonna post to attend. It's the 19th of November, correct, Keith?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what time does it start? 7
Seven
p.m. November 19th.
Give me a bag of candy.
All right, and then December, we may have to meet again for some minutes and discuss our drafts of the annual report, so we can vote that well ahead of it being due. But we'll see as we get there. I'm gonna be sending a list of meeting dates to Mr. Pike, so we can coordinate our use of Wednesday nights. Not have any meeting conflicts. I think that'd be good. Other than that, I think we should probably move on to meeting minutes. I think you guys on the, in remote should probably have copies that I sent out over the past week or so. I sent out the minutes for 9/26 this afternoon. I have a copy for Wayne, I think. Yep. Now, I wanted to discuss briefly, and I could be completely wrong about this. I had gone into where our minutes show in the agendas and minutes section of the website. I didn't know how we should close out all of our appearances at town meeting. I asked the assistant clerk if there's something we should do. They said, why don't you write up some minutes saying what happened, and then we'll just post them. One of these meetings, we didn't actually do it. We didn't move an article or have a discussion or take any votes. I don't know if we could just list that as being canceled. However, there were motions and brief discussions, but nothing that was, amounted to deliberation. But this, I've never heard of this before, but this is what I've been asked to do, so I've done it. Does that sound fine with everybody, or does it seem unusual? Posting minutes for attending town meeting? Seems unusual, but just decided to apply, because I know less about that than me.
If you conduct a meeting at town meeting, you're supposed to do minutes.
Yeah, but if you're
I'm
just,
not sure we always have either.
yeah, we didn't, what we posted for in case, I always post in case we have a discussion. And I figure if there's no discussion, it just stands still. I don't know if we should tell them, show the meeting as having been canceled. In other words, there's no minutes to look for it.
Did you open the meeting?
We didn't open the meeting.
No meeting.
All right. So all these guys were the motions that were read during the meeting. So that means we just will have to do the minutes from 9/26. Thank you, your comment? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Write down your edits. If you gentlemen can just hold yours for a minute while Wayne goes through, and then I can make yours over to the paper and we can put the final draft together. Send that off. And then that'll be it. Have a nice evening, Carl.
Always.
You're gonna see him at VidCon tomorrow night.
Tomorrow, Carl.
Bye-bye. Good evening.
Thank you.
You're all set?
He puts me in a corner.
You find anything, Michael?
No, and I wasn't here for enough of this meeting to be voting, I don't think.
No, I mean, I wrote an email to you. I said most people usually abstain. But in the age of the recorded meeting, I don't think you have to if you watched, if you're a voting member and you watched it. But I wanted you to just peruse it anyway, see if you found any mistakes. Chris, any edits?
Nope, looks a lot nicer than my first draft, I can tell you that much.
All right, somebody like to make a motion, or Michael, you still reading?
I'm good.
Okay. Then I'll make a motion. I move that we approve the minutes from the September 26th, 2024 meeting of the capital planning committee.
I'll second.
Wayne beat you. All those in favor, Heath, aye. Wayne, aye.
Chris, aye.
Michael abstain.
All right, and with that, there's only one more motion tonight. Unless anybody else has anything else they want to discuss. Remember comments, questions, concerns?
I move the finance committee adjourn. It's October
No.
5th, CPC. One night ahead.
Cap plan. Okay, Michael, you made the motion.
Plan adjourn. It's October 15th meeting at 6:53 PM.
6:53. Do we have a second?
Second by Chris.
All right, all those in favor, Heath, aye.
Michael, I.
Chris, aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Have a great evening, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.